Good evening and welcome to In Your Neighborhood, featuring interesting people from your community. My name is George Wolf, and joining me tonight are Bill Berger and Ray Franson, who have an interesting story about neighborhood help, self-help in the neighborhood. Bill, would you give me an idea of what this project was all about?
Well, we had a problem with flooding in an area of Homewood that's bounded by Bur Oak on the north, Linden on the south, Hood on the east, and Loomis on the west. We built these houses in the 1300 block of Linden in the spring of '65 and moved in August of '65. Now, it wasn't long after we moved in we had a tremendous storm, and we realized that we had a flooding problem in that area. And we went to village meetings, to the board meetings, and Mr. Gooley and the other members of the village council were sympathetic. Some of them came out and looked, and they had surveys conducted by engineers, and the money they paid the engineers for the surveys cost more than it cost us to solve the problem ourselves. And their solutions were so expensive, the village just couldn't do anything about it. They were sympathetic, like I said, and they wanted to help, but they couldn't afford it, so we did it ourselves.
Oh, excuse me, Bill. How many homes? I understand this was in a low area, primarily in the backyards of several homes. About how many homes were affected?
That's correct. There's 18 homes on that block, and approximately 7. 7 people contributed to the cost of this installation, and the total cost was $1,732, and each of these 7 people contributed $247. So it costs us $247 a family to really, what we think now is solve the problem.
Before we get into the details of solving that problem, you and Barney Bellino, a neighbor who couldn't be with you tonight, was it your concept originally?
Well, the two of us worked it out, yes.
Okay, and you're both engineers, aren't you?
That's right. Barney's a chemical engineer, and I'm a mechanical engineer from Purdue.
And we have Ray Franson with us tonight. Although Ray isn't in that immediate neighborhood, he's very close by. Can you tell us how Ray added to the project?
Well, Ray, being a good citizen, a good friend, a good neighbor, he saw that we lost one good neighbor to cancer, so there was only 2 of us to do all this work, and Ray volunteered to help us. And frankly, without him, we never would have been able to do it. He's an experienced craftsman. He knows concrete, forms, and that type of thing, and he contributed a great deal.
I understand you have some photographs with you tonight showing the area.
Yes. What we did, we dug a sump in the backyard at the low point, ran a line out to the front yard into another sump, and the village wouldn't let us touch the sewer, so what this does, and you'll see it in these pictures, the water is pumped to the front. When the sump fills up, it overflows right into a drain that's in the yard.
Speaking of that water, before you do show the pictures, Bill, you can tell the viewers of how deep the water has gotten on occasions.
At times, that water would be 2 feet deep. It threatened the basements of 2 homes and the garage of another. And I mean, serious. I mean, there was a lot of water. Ray, do you want to show these and talk about them?
From this point here, where the sump is with the grid on it, to the back of Barney's house is actually 21 inches. So, you see, in order for it to be water to be in his basement, it was better than 2 feet. And they did have water in the basement. In fact, I don't know how much there was, Bill. There was at least a foot, wasn't there?
Oh, that's...
Yeah, at least a foot.
On several occasions.
So, this being the sump in the back at the low point, we dug a trench. That being the sump, we dug a trench to go over to the property line and then straight out to Linden Road. From there, we headed east to another sump.
There's 2 pictures.
Where's the other sump?
It's coming next.
Yeah, this is the other sump right next to the storm sewer. See, and that's why the village wouldn't let us dump it right into the storm sewer. We had to have this sump, which, because of the dirt we may pick up from the yards, that it would stay in this sump instead of going into the storm sewer. See? Now, we think that the problem is over, but if it got to the point where the storm sewer couldn't take this, we still had the same problem. So we've only alleviated the problem from the backyard to the storm sewer. So,
See, that's another problem we had. The water is not, that accumulated there is not just the water that fell in those yards. It's water that ran down Linden, Burr Oak, and probably even from Ridge. And then at times, on a heavy downpour, like 3 inches in a half an hour, the Homewood sewer backflows. And we still have that problem, but hopefully that's not going to occur too often. But even if it does, as soon as that water goes down, stops backflowing, then our pump takes over and drains the backyards. Now before we used to have to get a pump from the village, fire hoses, and move the pump every hour. This way we've got the problem more than likely 95% solved.
another thing that about this, we have a pump in here, a half horsepower pump. It's the biggest pump you can get that'll still run on 110, 120 volts. The reason for that is because they figured out for a power failure, we'd be able to just run a regular generator. And that's what that will take care of the pump also.
I think, gentlemen, what's the most interesting on this story, other than the technical aspects, which were very, very well thought out, was the fact, again, that how many houses, how many neighbors were affected by this seriously?
Seven.
Seven. And how much, what was the final cost that you came up with for a relatively sophisticated system? I know I've seen it. How much did it cost again?
$1,732.
Well, that certainly is a moderate cost, because right. I know Linden Road there is one of our floodplains in town, and I know the problems you've been having. How much money? I know it's hard to calculate, but conceivably it could save people in that neighborhood thousands and thousands of dollars.
Thousands of dollars, yeah.
Sure. In damage.
These people have panel basements, and look at the cost of ruining that.
How was your reception among the neighbors when you first told them about this project? Because you probably didn't know definite costs right at the beginning, especially.
Really, it was Barney Vellino. He just took on the costs all by himself, and the neighbors just volunteered. The way I get the story, because he did not solicit it, did he, Bill?
No, that's true. People just stepped forward.
They just stepped forward when they saw what we were doing, and they stepped forward and they come together.